Welcome to Software Sales Simplified, Move to Success, our weekly podcast for software sales professionals who want to sell better. Whether you're a seasoned professional or just starting out, make Software Sales Simplified your home for insights, developments from the world of enterprise software sales. I'm Kevin Donville. I am joined by my illustrious colleague and good friend, Matt Long. Together, we have over 50 years experience in software enterprise sales. And we're very happy that you've taken a moment to go and join us here today. Matt, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm back home, which is nice, always after being on the road for a bit, and looking forward to getting back into it.
Well, we're really glad to have you here. And I know that a little bit of a break is always a good thing. And we are coming back from a little bit of a summer sabbatical ourselves. And we're joined with a new guest here. And today we're going to be talking about aligning sales and marketing better to drive better outcomes in the enterprise software sales world. And in order to have that conversation, we've brought a guest on board, James Fox. James, how are you doing today?
Hey, Kev, I'm doing amazing. Thank you very much for having me.
Well, we're really excited to have you here, James. You and I have not worked together before, but we've had a couple of conversations online together, and they were very exciting. So really looking forward to talking with you and sharing your perspectives on this topic with our audience. Now, I've had an opportunity to get to know you online, but our audience clearly hasn't. If you would be so kind, take a minute, take the floor, and tell everybody about yourself, who you are, what you do, and where you do it.
Hey, brilliant. Thank you very much. So I'm James Fox. I'm head of business development for Pina Vida, Loco, and our new AI startup, ScrumBuddy. I've been all over the world over my career and my life. I was born in the UK, but I moved over to the US, back again, back to the US, back again between Alaska and Texas, up to Scotland, came to Manchester University when I was 18 and fell in love with the city. I've been here for the last 15 years. I got my break in sales about 12 years ago. I'm starting out on the phones, cold calling. Hey, would you like to buy our software? Hey, would you like to buy our software? And realized that I quite enjoyed working with people. So I've made a career out of it. And for the last year or so, then I've been heading up the entire sales and marketing team for all three of those companies and trying just to figure out how do you get it all done in a single day? And the answer is it's a real struggle.
I was going to say that's a lot. That's a mouthful right there. And, having worked a little bit on both sides of the equation as well, there are a lot of misunderstandings and misfires between the marketing and sales department. And you cut your teeth on that coming up through the ranks. What are some of the most common mistakes or misalignments you've seen between marketing and sales?
Sure. So in my last role, I was sort of an aftermarket sales account manager, taking care of our existing clients. I've also done on the phones and new sales. And a huge set of challenges occur when marketing and sales aren't aligned on the same message and the value proposition for what their clients really need. One of the biggest challenges that I always see as well is where marketing doesn't understand what it is like to be on the customer's side with a lot of the challenges they see. They can have an idea, they can be targeting metrics, they can be looking at getting conversions through different channels, but if they're not giving sales the tools to be able to close deals, to empathize with customers, and to really prove that they understand where the customer is coming from, I don't think it ever works, and it makes sales lives a lot harder.
No, I concur. I've seen that same manifestation. In fact, some of the most effective and some of the most talented marketing people that I've met over the course of my career have been very effective sellers and have honed those skills, not shied away from them, but actively pursued that seller role and persona when they've been working with the companies I've been working with. With that being in mind, can you give me some examples of where, when you were either in the marketing role itself or when you were working with maybe marketing teams that were struggling to get that messaging right, how have you been able to affect change or influence the role on the marketing side for better success?
Brilliant. So I think it's really important to work as closely as possible with marketing in a regular and constructive basis. Sales leads the charge out into the real world, but marketing needs to be providing the ammo that sales can use to go and fight the good fight, which I find really important. And it's a combination of providing the skills, the tools, and the messaging that then resonates correctly, that the marketers can generate for the salesperson to then apply to the specific needs of the clients. Some of the best salespeople I work with take a step back whenever trying to understand exactly what the client is wanting to work for and make the demo fit the client's needs, not just what the marketing material says. But you don't get in the door if the marketing material isn't up to scratch, to have them found you, to have them be aware of who you are, and to provide more context on what you're trying to provide value for.
Yeah, question around the misalignment with the customer stories and things like that. I'm always surprised in a sales organization when marketing, when there's not a whole lot of case studies, or when they're field generated from the sales team. But I don't feel like marketing is really going out there and researching and talking to the customers and things like that. Is that where you see some of where it falls down a little bit, or what can marketing do to improve the quality and the the efficiency of these types of stories as they're putting them out there?
Great question. I think marketing should really be there speaking with the customers, much like an account rep is. When in my role, I was dealing with large procurement clients implementing enterprise scale systems, bringing marketing and letting them have access to the client to listen in and get the human side of the story was really important. You can provide them data, you can give them keywords, you can tell them what people are saying, but until they really understand what it's like to have your purchase order fail, your invoice be able to be failed to be paid on time, till they can understand the real struggle on the client side, I think they have this lofty ambition of what they could be selling, and to bring it back down to the human element is really important. So in my last role, it was really key to make sure that as much data and insight from my role was shared directly with marketing, whether it's video and meeting recordings, notes, pain points, or making sure marketing stayed in their lane occasionally. There were times when they would, it's good for them to want to reach out to clients, but I think it's important, especially in the sales relationship building, for marketing to understand that you build the relationship from a sales point of view. Marketing should be there to support you, not take over that relationship. And relationships, I think, are one of the biggest things in sales that you really need to build early. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to build trust. You're not going to be able to convince them of the value, and they're not likely going to buy from you.
No, absolutely. I get what you're saying there. I mean, one of the things that's most telling, and I agree with you from that, making that distinction between why marketing can't do that, is because they haven't earned the right to have that conversation with the customer yet.
Exactly.
Because they haven't gone through the pain and anguish of the sales cycle and going through the exercise of showing, I know what your problem is. I know the consequence of your problem. Let me help you avoid that consequence. That's a bit of a tried and true aspect of behavior relative to buyers in the marketplace today. But because of the readiness and the availability of information, and marketing's got a big role to play there, as Matt was just saying, have there been major changes that you've seen in the way that the buyers are behaving relative to the information that's available to them? And how does that change the sales cycle?
It's a really good question. So I think one thing that marketing now needs to be aware of is, at the invention of the internet, we became more aware of all the information at our fingertips. And AI has only accelerated the ability for people to gather that information. So marketing probably used to be sharing that information in an easy format for users and buyers to be able to identify. I think the challenge now, though, is because all that information is so easily available, that you really need to then understand more about the human side of the sales cycle than just what the data tells you. And being able to build human and relatable stories that an AI can't easily emulate, that is a key thing for marketing to work on. So part of the work we're doing at the moment is to try and make more content around the real value of the human experience in the AI startup we're building, in the founders we're working with, in the enterprise clients that we've engaged with for a number of years. And that's tricky. And you can't do that with a spreadsheet. I don't think you can do that with just writing some copy and posting that on the internet like you used to be able to, sending out mass emails. I think you really need to explore other mediums of engagement, and that's meeting people directly at networking events and having marketing support you to have tools and keywords or key messages to share. I think that also is really important in video content like what we do today. So I think having a face that then goes with the message and then starting to build a relationship there is really important. And I also then think building a brand more than maybe just a value proposition, something that customers can then start to empathize or relate to and say, I like that brand, I like the work they're doing, which becomes a bigger message than just the thing you're selling. I think if you start to build a really successful brand, people buy into the brand more than just what it does. Coca-Cola, Microsoft all have now brands about what they're focusing on. Even companies like BrewDog, for example, had a brand that was really successful. But then they threw it away with the actions of their C-suite and the challenges they had in the UK. The brewery is right around the house of my parents, which I have been to and seen it grow in size. And I followed their story really closely. And they nailed the marketing 10, 15 years ago. They really broke out on the scene as a new company on the block that people should take notice of. But they've lost a lot of respect, I guess, in the industry and had a lot of challenges by the way that they've gone about not providing human-focused, constructive marketing anymore. It's all about the hype in the news, really, is why they're there. I don't think that they've been successful compared to other brands that have really broken on the scene.
I want to double click a little bit on the video content, because we're starting to see that everywhere. LinkedIn, everyone's pushing video content. And I would agree that humanizes things a lot. Yet we're starting to see AI now being able to generate video content that sometimes is almost impossible to tell. So I'm just curious from your perspective, trying to continue to distance yourself from AI generated content. What are some things in video that you find more effective still, or does it not matter at this point? What are your thoughts around that?
It's a good question. So I think the rise of AI has made it easier to edit video content. I mean, I have all my fingers, which is great. So I am less likely to be an AI, but I think it's becoming easier and easier to use AI to fake the human level of these video contents. And I think that every week I see another video and I sometimes go, I'm not sure if that's AI or not, until something crazy happens. An Instagrammer stands on top of a plane wing while it's flying, for example. Like, there we go. But walking down the street now, you could very easily be fooled by video content that looks real. So we're trying to, I guess, I think what you can do is you can make mistakes with it. You can have a video interview where you come across anxious, where you come across where you've made mistakes, where your speech isn't perfect, where you don't gloss over all of the human errors that really make the content authentic. And I think that's a great way to continue to build authenticity and empathy in the market by being honest, being truthful, and telling a great story and making mistakes along the way. We're launching our first podcast and I'm excited for it. I don't think it's going to go perfectly, but I think it's better than trying to have an AI chatbot that talks to you about the value of the solution I'm trying to sell, even if the AI is so good that you can't tell the difference. I think the cadence, the tone, the language, the human body language is really important, and why I think video content will still be a main driver for marketing teams in the future.
Well, there's no fear here if it comes to mistakes. We're chock full of them.
Brilliant.
Yeah, we've sort of based our entire careers on the whole aspect of making mistakes. In fact, I think in one of our earlier podcasts, we were talking about we've made the mistakes so that you don't have to. So please follow along with us so that you don't have to repeat what we already know doesn't work. But to your point about AI, and I think there's a certain degree of disingenuousness to it. I mean, it's good, but even when it's great, there's still a lack of true human connection, at least now, with respect to it being able to connect with people. And you're off getting ready to go do your new podcast. I think that and I'd love both of your opinions on this. We're trying to establish trust in the sales cycle. We're trying to establish connection. We're trying to establish a relationship that not only is going to survive the initial sale, but is going to survive over time and grow. How do you think the role of AI compromises or enhances that with respect to content creation going forward? With that end.
Tough question. Okay.
I knew it was a hard one.
So
I knew it was going to be a hard one.
So I think, in my opinion, I think you should use AI much like any research tool. I think AI can give you guardrails and can give you direction. But I think that you still have to then go and do some thinking and create your own twist just because of what the AI tells you. I think when it comes to some of the examples I've had in my career trying to utilize AI, friends have called me out for, James, was that an AI post you put on LinkedIn, for example? And yes, right? I was trying it out. I wanted to see if people could tell. My boss has given me an example of, can you spot the difference between these two articles? Which one's AI and which one's not? And 5 minutes in, I was like, I think I can guess. And I got it right, luckily, but it's only going to get better. So I would say that you should use it as an enhancement tool. It should make you better. AI should be able to do and clean up my face from all the spots I might have. It should be able to help prompt me with ideas and suggestions, similar to what we're trying to build with ScrumBuddy. We don't want to replace a key part of the team. We want to augment it. We want to push it to be better. And humans are going to be able to be better with AI, So I'd like to see it become more as the background, doing the hard admin tasks, doing the hard work for you on the research, giving you then the thought to go and say, how do I want to use this information in a more constructive way?
That makes a lot of sense. And that's kind of the approach that I've tried to take as well. It can enhance and streamline and improve the accuracy of certain things we're doing, the mundane and procedural actions and activities, but using it to be the creative force behind what you're trying to go to market with, you may be compromising what you could be saying and what you could be conveying and communicating with people as a result. Matt, do you have what are your thoughts on that with respect to AI? Additive or not yet?
Certainly additive. I mean, there doesn't not a day goes by where I don't use AI to help create some of my material. But I mean, it's very important that I then take my own personal lens on it and make sure that it's constructed in the right way. As I train it more, I find there's less work I have to do afterwards. So I've fed it enough things. It knows about my writing style, my preferences. You know, I grew up a writer, right, and an artist and things like that. So I pride myself on my ability to communicate in the written form. But at the end of the day, I look at it as like I could spend 5 times as long creating this content, and it would be maybe for this purpose, maybe 10, 15% better, right? And is that really enough to justify it? If I'm writing a work of fiction or something, then of course I'm going to make it all my own, right? But for business communication and communicating information, factual information, I think it's great as long as you just kind of go through it and just say, does this make sense? You can validate a few things, but for the most part, I can skim it over, change a few things, and pump it out there and move on to the next high value task.
I'd like to add just one more thing that you made me think of there. And it doesn't always have to be as well in purely creative senses. I found that I was in Dubai a couple of months ago, figuring things out, trying to explore ideas, and met some really interesting people. And they were at a stage where they were using AI, where the guy I met had put his entire wardrobe into AI. He put all his outfits. He then put his calendar in there. He had generated to be a personal assistant for him. And he would say, okay, based on my calendar, what am I wearing today? And it would take away just a lot of these sort of questions that, the decisions you have to make during the day, which I was like really interested by that automation is going. And I thought about how could I use that in business? So we've started to then build bigger databases of information to train the AI to make our day jobs easier. This is the task I should work on. This is where I should go next. This is suggestions and ideas for us to then take away in action. So it's not doing always in the background, doing a lot of the work for us.
James, this leads me back to something you and I were talking about when we were having our conversation a few weeks ago. You were talking about buyer resistance in the selling cycles today, and how that's the kind of the razors cut back at the industry because of all these tools that are available there. Given the prevalence for AI, what are some of the things that we as sellers, both in marketing and sales, can be undertaking to break through the resistance that this dependency on AI seems to be creating now?
Sure, it's a great question. So I think it actually means that we've gone so far down the rabbit hole of technology that we actually need to step back and go back to the human elements of what selling's really about. We have all these tools. We can reach out to more people than have, ever been possible before. We're able to push forward with sharing ideas and creating things of value for others from millions of miles away and working on things. But actually, where I feel most successful in a sales and overcoming buyer resistance is by going out and talking to people. So every networking event, when I go to a big conference, I find that there's a lot of people on stands, you're walking around. The best conversations that I really enjoy are the ones where you're sat in the pub afterwards having a beer. Because everybody then really lets their guard down a bit. It's not as forced, it's not as critical, and everybody then starts to let themselves be more relaxed, and you then get better conversations. And the best relationships, I honestly feel, are you spend 8 days at an event, or 8 hours at an event, and then the hour or two at the bar afterwards is where you make a lot of the best connections. And very similar when I'm going to their networking events, lightning talks and debates about AI and the way it's being used. The conversations are quite structured and are relatively frigid, especially in the software world when you talk to a lot of devs and so on. The second you take them out of that zone and it becomes much more relaxed and you're talking about your passions, your hobbies, what's brought you there, your experiences, you then start having real conversations with people. So I think even though we've gone down this massive AI rabbit hole and we can use it for so much good, I would argue that you should really go back to basics. Go and talk to people. Go out there and meet them. Try and set up face-to-face coffee dates so that you're removing the screen. You're removing people's distractions. You're really zoned in on the person, and they then feel heard and they feel listened to, as opposed to I'm sat here with 1,000 things going off and I could always be distracted by something else. And you're going to get better, I feel, conversations. You're going to get better relationships. And you're going to close more deals, if I'm honest. I think that's a really big, important thing that I always try and practice is I want to go and shake that person's hand and look them in the eye and talk to them about what really matters for them.
Yeah, it brings up an interesting point you mentioned about just the need for human connection. Because we're so used to video and remote and interacting on in these platforms. Not to get too philosophical, but I'm just wondering if that's going to, kind of push for a return to work, return to office, return to kind of working with people just to get that connection, right? And that authenticity of things, because I do feel like we're very disconnected. I mean, I'm obviously in Hawaii, which makes business communication and things a little challenging. There's many benefits to being here, but connectivity with the people I'm working with is not one of them. So I'm definitely feeling that myself, but I don't know. You're obviously we're in Manchester, right? In a big city.
Yep.
And have you seen more of a need for people to have that connection beyond the sales and the business routine?
Yeah, it's a great shift over the last few years since COVID. I think it's been really interesting to study it. And I hope there's going to be loads of studies about it, of people's psychology in this period of time. 2019, 2018, I'm in the office 5 days a week. I'm waking up early. I'm traveling 30, 40, 50 an hour to get to work. And I dreaded it. It was annoying. It was frustrating. It wasted so much of my day to be stuck in traffic and became frustrating. Second, the dream of remote working was open to us, especially highlighted by COVID. Everyone was like, this is the most amazing thing I could have ever asked for. And I remember vividly how much I enjoyed being able to be sat here in the comfort of my home with all the screens I could ever want and all the niceties that I need, right? And it was really comfortable. And then it shifted back, and then they started pushing us to go back into the office. And at my last place, the culture changed a lot. They moved offices to a city centre rather than a sort of outside the Manchester area location. That changed a lot of people's, I don't really want to go back. I'm not enjoying it, especially for the developers, the project managers, the business analysts who could be more productive, right? They're chargeable time. The second they can have 2 hours of their day back, if they can be sat in front of a computer doing the same things, great. But what I've now seen, and I agree with your point that it becomes more important recently, is that you need some form of human connection. I work now for a fully remote company. We don't have a central office. There's no one I can go in and talk to build that relationship. And it's something that I miss. It is a big element of going over to someone's desk and saying, I have this problem. Can we talk about it? It's a big level of problem solving that doesn't exist anymore. I have to ping someone on Teams. I have to wait for them to be available. They might not get back to me that day. If they're working in a different time zone, then I might miss them and be 24 hours before I can pick it up again with them. Just the fact that I could have a call with a client, go, that sucks. I'm going to sort this out for you. And then walk over to the developer's desk and say, help me understand this problem. What can we do? And work out a solution together. And even though devs complain as well about I just want to be left alone to code, a lot of them would then enjoy and we'd problem solve together. Okay, is this theoretically possible? Can we deploy? Can we release this? Can we solve this issue for them? And that problem solving, I think, is being lost by everybody working completely remotely. So I would see that there will be a shift in a hybrid mentality back to the office. You want some days to be able to go and talk to people and problem and work out things together. I think then you still don't want a bit of space, though, to sit and do the hard tasks and grind when you don't want distractions and you just want the Monday or the Friday to be admin and so on and be more productive. So I do see that we're going to go into a bigger hybrid model as we continue to go forward.
So with respect to that, then you're talking about the whole human connection. How much of what you just described for your own personal satisfaction with your own job and the effectiveness of your own role, how does that factor into your desire to be more effective through direct personal human interaction if customers are also in this hybrid model as well? Does it play into it? And if so, what's the advantage? How do you leverage it?
Sure. So I think you do it in a few ways. I think the first thing is you make the effort to go drive to where they are. It's a big effort. I remember driving quite a lot in my job. You get public transport in the UK is not bad. I know you don't have a lot of that in America, unfortunately, but I would get on the train a lot down to London. I would be up at 4 a.m. to get a train down for a 9 a.m. meet. And a lot of those, it does matter a lot. You've got to put yourself out there and you've got to make the effort, I think. Another side of it is if you have teams around you, then you've got to be able to have time to sit together in a room and solve your problems. We're going down to London with my senior management team in a few weeks. We've been working remotely for a couple of months in a row now. I'm really looking forward to the opportunity to sit with them and hash out the challenges and the problems and go through in a face-to-face environment. And yes, that's going to waste time, right? I could be sat here sending more emails, making more phone calls, posting more on LinkedIn, right? Allegedly, that's work now. I enjoy that aspect to some degree, but I do think you've got to make the effort. The other side then as well, from a sales point of view, which I think is really important about that empathy, is you need to get out of the house and go to a lot of the events and go and meet the people that you're trying to sell to. I think it's really important to go to networking events after work. I think it's really important to go to conferences and listen in and find out what is the pulse of your market, of your industry. What are people talking about? When we were in Dubai a few months ago, my boss came away and was blown away at some of the talks he listened to on AI and the ideas that were moving, it was February or March time, and agents were the brand new buzzword of the day. He's a tech guy. So his enjoyable evening at that point was to take and absorb all that information and go back and code back in his room. And I was like, I'm going to go to the after party and I'm going to go and chat to people. And we both then came out of it with a really successful event because he was inspired to go and create something brand new. And I can remember sitting there in the cab and he's showing me, look at what I've just created last night. And I was like, let me tell you about the person I just met last night and the events we do and the places you go to. And you've got to understand what is your key skill set with that. For me, I'm a people person. I love empathy. I'm a good communicator, I think. And I enjoy that human interaction and being able to explain and understand concepts and work through people's problems. My co-founder, Guy, is much more, I want to work on tech and I want to solve problems in my own space. I mean, that's where we balance each other out really well, which is enjoyable. So I do feel you've got to go and make the effort with the clients. You've got to go see them. You've got to collaborate with your team face-to-face, wherever they are. And you have to go into the spaces and get out of your comfort zone with going to talk to the people as much as you can, especially if you have a beer with it.
Yeah, all about having that beer after work is really critical.
Indeed. Builds relationships. It builds a lot of relationships. That beer after work is really important for company culture.
Absolutely. I want to just talk a little bit more about the types of content that you're finding most valuable. I mean, we talked about video being one, obviously that can differentiate, but there's other things too. Like, there's webinars, there are podcasts, obviously that we're doing, educational training videos, thought leadership pieces, all these types of things. Where do you find that you get the most value, or is it a combination of all those?
It's a great question. I've been learning a lot in this role. So my previous role, I was primarily just sales, working with marketing, but letting marketing do the heavy lifting with the thought leadership and the emails and the webinars and so on. And I just had to go in and translate that for clients. Now being on the other side of the equation, having to create it, I think you do have to spread out and get a variety of content. So in our space where we're using this new AI SaaS platform, it's all about enhancing developers. We're really keen to have thought leadership to talk about what's going on in our space so that people will be like, that's really interesting. I hadn't thought about the impact agents are going to have in this area, how AI is being used, the challenges that the industry might be having with developers vibe coding and the poor quality of code that might come out of it. I think it's really important to build educational content because with AI being such a tool for learning, I think by having educational content that people can go and watch, people can read about, people can learn from is really important because you're sharing your experience and how you've solved those problems. And your educational content could take a variety of formats. It could be very generic into your industry. We're targeting requirements, for example. So we're like, how do you build better requirements in Jira? How do you build better requirements for your team? How do you understand what storyboards you need to build together, your sprint planning? That can be really useful of how do you build a sprint if someone's never been a Scrum Master before and then finds your content through the educational content you do. I think that you really also need to make sure that you've got some really human testimonials and customer case studies that really then go and show, here's what this person with a problem just like yours had and how we helped fix it. I think can really be anything you want them to be. It could be time saved. It could be, extra. But really what people probably want to know is, how did I solve this problem? This is a problem that others have had. This is a problem that you can see is out there, it's prevalent, it's not going away. This is how we make that problem less of an issue. This is how we help add value to you in whatever industry you're working on to address this problem. It's not going to be a one-size-fits-all Band-Aid, so then you need to have different content for different testament or different industries, different use cases. And that's complicated then, especially when you start to think of, if you have a generic platform, if you're someone like Fellow, for example, and you just do Teams recordings, you're going to have loads of different case studies for loads of different industries, from anything from customer support and IT recording to educational content for like universities, right? Why are they going to love lecturers being able to take notes with those apps, for example? You've got to make sure that you've got all your target markets covered. And then I think the final thing, though, is just have some really good, clean messaging. I think that you've got to make it simple. I've fallen foul very regularly to overcomplicating the issue that I'm trying to explain we're solving. I've used dozens of words where one will do. There's a guy I met recently on another online webinar, and he said, hey, you've overcomplicated it. It's a really simple idea. Your product solves problems in software delivery by making sure you understand on day one what you're delivering. By being able to cleanly condense that into as few words as possible without overly complicated language really is going to help people empathize or understand your messaging better, and then be more curious to find out more, and then hopefully engage and then buy your product.
Yeah, why do you think people tend to overcomplicate the messaging? It's universal, by the way.
Yeah.
Is it to make feel smarter, or that it's more sophisticated solution? Because I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that.
Great question. I'm actually going to draw a very weird parallel here. So let's see if this works. I'm a big fantasy nerd. I love fantasy and sci-fi. I have read hundreds of fantasy and sci-fi books over my life. I'm reading one called the Malazan series by Steven Erikson. It is very philosophical. It is very deep. It's always inside the heads of the characters. I think he likes this idea of how deep the emotions run for characters. I compare that to something maybe like Brandon Sanderson or James Islington that I'm also reading at the moment. And they have a much more direct, this character is in pain. This is the issue. And they have a much easier conversation flow. And then somewhere in the middle is probably something like George R. R. Martin with Game of Thrones, where he's got the depth and the complexity and the thoughts, but he really manages to nail the moments of grandeur that he wants to express in his content. And I think there's a load of reasons why people do this. I think sometimes they just want to make themselves feel important. I can use big words and overly complicate something, make me show off. I look intelligent. I think some people will do it because they're not great at communicating. I think they'll have read something, they'll have used AI to explain a concept to them that's overly complicated and tried to replicate that, and then missed actually what the key message is that they're trying to deliver. Not this grandiose explanation of why the technology works. I'm going to save you time. Nice and simple. I'm going to make it a lot more valuable for you. I'm going to make it easier for you to do this task. Rather than explaining, oh, well, you get a 17% efficiency boost if you will drive the automation sequence through a long hyperdrive of complex solutions. And I'm just like, no, I'm going to save you time. I think there's a whole variety. Poor communication, poor understanding of the problems, poor empathy with the client. I think there's a whole load of reasons why they can overdo it, personal or professional. I think that's why great salespeople, though, are great communicators and able to then take a complex issue and dial it down to the most basic idea of, this is really complicated, but here, this is why you're going to like it.
So on that front, we were talking, we kind of kicked off the whole conversation today with talking about the partnership between marketing and sales, and how that partnership is so important for a number of different things that we've discussed over the course of our episode today. How important are external partnerships in being able to drive the efficiency of communication and go-to-market strategy that you just described?
I think critical in this day and age. I think it's incredibly important to have other people, first off, that buy into what you're selling. Partnership should be that they see the vision you're trying to achieve and agree with you on it, and therefore are willing to spend their time and effort to help you achieve that. A lot of partnerships, especially in like software worlds, for example, fall apart at the first hurdle where one side just isn't bought into what you're both trying to achieve. I've had a lot of conversations over the years of, hey, I think it'd be really good if we collaborated. I think our companies would benefit each other a lot if they could add value. Normally that comes from a position of someone wanting something from somebody who's already got something. Market presence, clients that they want to target. And it becomes a very imbalanced dynamic for how then you're reaching out and trying to offer the person who has what you want something of value. So you both need to be coming at it from a similar angle of, this is going to help us both solve some of the challenges we have. The other example I think is really important, though, especially when we talked about collaboration between teams and sales and marketing, is validation. You should really be pushing people to question you and challenge you and make you better. I really like the concept of, I never want to be the smartest man in the room. I want to find partnerships with other people who challenge me and push me to be better. I'm not great at tech. I couldn't code to save my life. But my co-founder, guys, incredible with it and explains to me concepts all the time of how AI really works and its black box and all these ideas that I think makes me smarter and understand more every day. And that style of partnership is really important because then we add value to each other. I can teach him more. Well, hopefully I can teach him some things, but there's a lot that I can also learn. So that imbalance is the moment I feel like I'm always wanting to provide value in that sense. And when it comes to then like fractional C-suite support, where you're a startup and you really want to get engagement from other people to help you out, it's really important to go out and ask those questions. It's really important to get someone else to question, challenge, and push back so that you can think about things from a perspective that you might not have the experience to have explored before. How is someone who's got 20 or 30 years on me going to look at something that's brand new in a technology space that they know very little about? How is the opposite going to be when I want to go out to the market and bring on someone with energy and enthusiasm to help me push forward and challenge the status quo of what we've been doing for 10 years? So partnerships, especially at a fractional point of view when you're starting out with your idea, I think is all about building a better whole from the pieces that you've built. You might add up to 5 individually, but together you become 20 or 30 or 40. And that really then takes ideas from this could work to, oh my God, this is going to change our industry, the world, etc., whatever your target is. And so getting that support and validation in the partnership space, I feel is critical.
Absolutely. I would love to keep talking about these topics, but we do need to kind of bring our episode to a close today. And I really appreciate you coming on board and sharing some of these perspectives, especially the last part you were just talking about from fractional leadership. Definitely something very near and dear to Matt and mine's heart. But if someone was looking to come into the industry now and they're sitting there trying to decide, do I go into marketing? Do I go into sales? What's the best path for me to go in? What advice might you say to somebody? Where can I make the biggest and best contribution? And what's going to be best for me? What would you say to them?
I think there's several areas that people should explore. I think the first is being really honest with yourself and getting that partnership, getting that outside validation as early as possible to understand your skill sets and what you can bring to the table. If you're great at coding, if you're great at delivering technology, if you're great at understanding and solving problems, you've got to focus and double down on that and know that's where I'm going to put all my skills to become better. If you're great with people, if you're the life of the party and you're the person that people always want to hang around with because of your charisma, you then know that those are skills that you want to hone. But that's kind of been my journey of I really always enjoyed working with people. I always felt like communication was a skill set that I naturally adapted to very well. And so I've spent 10 years plus now, actually, gosh, time flies when you're having fun. I've spent 10 years really trying to learn from those around me to get better, to ask better questions, to listen more than I talk. I think there's a whole range of skills people could use. So people getting into the industry right now, in a few words or less, I would say is be honest with what your skills are and then find people that balance those skills out. Small companies are a great way to gain huge experience. Big companies are going to teach you a lot, though, about how the world really works after university, for example. Both of those are great experiences that I would recommend to anybody to try out. I also think be ready to fail. Just be honest and know that I'm not going to be perfect every single time. I'm going to make mistakes. It's maybe a bit cliche, but you've got to. You've just got to keep trying. Those failures will teach you a lot, and hopefully you'll make fewer of them as you go forward. And I guess finally, one's always be curious. Always want to learn. Never stop learning. Always go and read another book, listen to another podcast, go and find somebody else who could explain something you don't understand. And you get really good at AI because it's only going to get better.
Absolutely. Well, great advice. And I appreciate those words and I support that perspective wholeheartedly. Always be curious is something that I often find myself giving advice to people, not just folks that are starting out, but people that have been around for a long time as well. Never lose that insatiable curiosity. James, if people want to go and reach out to you to go and continue this conversation, to know more about what your organizations do or more about what you can provide them in terms of guidance and mentorship, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Thank you. Yeah, loads of ways. I'd love for people to reach out to me on LinkedIn. You can find me James Fox 42 on LinkedIn. And you can search James Fox Pina Vida. That's generally, there's a lot of James Foxes in the world. I'm more than happy for people to always reach out if they've listened in, if they want to have a chat. I'd love to have a conversation and learn more about other people's experiences. They could sign up and chat through our website. So ScrumBuddy has launched. We're looking for early adopters and beta testers to help us learn more about the challenges and mistakes we're going to make over the next 6 months. So that's scrumbuddy.com. Sign up there, and then I'll reach out to you and start having a conversation about how they might want to use the tool in the future. Or just really, just drop me an email, james.fox@pinavida.co.uk. Hopefully it doesn't end up in my junk. I'm always happy for people to reach out if they've heard and wanted to chat more. So yeah, really excited. Hopefully someone hears this and would like to chat more in the future.
Well, we'll certainly put all that information down inside of the dibbly-doo that's down below all of the different episodes, so people can go in and click on that and reach out to you. Do you have a name yet for your podcast? Can we give you a little plug for that before you go?
Oh, yes, please. Yeah. So I'm really excited. It's going to be called Fox and Founders, which I just think is a pretty good name. I'm Fox, James Fox, and it's going to be Fox and Founders. We're going to be interviewing founders. We'll be having a chat similar to this. I will probably be doing a lot less talking, as I will be the host, which I'm really excited for. Our first podcast is on Monday, the 28th. I reckon this webinar might not be out, or might not be out by then. So we'll be running that every 2 weeks. You can find that on the ScrumBuddy YouTube channel. You can find that on LinkedIn. You can find that on Instagram and TikTok. We're going to be all over the place with shorts out of that. We're doing that live. I don't know if it's a good idea.
Ooh,
we're going to make some mistakes. So I'm really excited to see how that goes. We've got our first guest lined up, and I would love to have both of you guys on at some point so that I can quiz you in the future, which I would really love to see.
Would love to be on. Matt, what are your thoughts?
That sounds fantastic. Yeah, I really enjoyed our conversation today, James, and a lot of great insights there. And hopefully one day we'll be able to share a beer together.
I would love that. That'd be amazing. Now, Thank you so much for having me. I've really appreciated the opportunity. This is my first ever podcast, so this has been really enjoyable. I've really appreciated the opportunity, and yeah, look forward to us being able to stay in touch and chat again soon.
Well, sir, you're a natural. Not that we've got that much experience underneath our belt, but definitely was a wonderful conversation. Very much enjoyed. And ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed what you heard today, please take the moment to follow James's channels. We're certainly going to be listening in on it so we can help support our fellow podcaster. But if you guys would be so kind, if you could take a moment, please like, subscribe, follow, comment on today's podcast. What did you like about it? What did we not cover that you would have liked to have heard us get into? Give us all of your thoughts. We'd be really appreciative of that. But with that having been said, we're going to bring this episode to a close. I'm going to say goodbye to James once again, and to Matt, my good partner and good friend, and to all of you who went and spent a little bit of time with us here today. Take care, and we'll talk to you again next time.
Take care.